The argument started like all the others, but tonight it had a sharpness that cut deeper than before. "Isabel, you have no idea what this family sacrifices for you," her father shouted across the cramped kitchen, his fist pounding the battered formica table. Her mother, arms folded tight, echoed in Spanish, "Tu hermano is family. He needs you, don't be selfish." Isabel stood by the open window, letting the sticky Alabama night seep through the screen and cool her flushed cheeks. Her brother, Luis, lounged on the broken sofa in the living room, not even pretending to listen. He scrolled his phone, looking up only to shoot her a smirk. "I've already given you everything," Isabel said quietly, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I paid for Luis's car repairs. I dropped out of community college to work. What more do you want?" Luis piped up from the couch, slurring just a bit. "Maybe if you weren't so stingy, we'd have a real place to live. Not this dump." Their mother snapped, "Enough, both of you. Isabel, go get your laptop, your phone, your jewelry, everything you own that can be sold." Luis's debt collectors called again. "They say they'll come for the car tomorrow." Isabel's chest tightened. She'd been down this road before. Every time Luis got into trouble, gambling, a wrecked car, another scam, she became the sacrifice. But tonight, something in her broke. "My laptop is how I do my freelance work," she tried, voice cracking. "My jewelry was Mom's gift for my 15th birthday. You can't just—" Her father's face was hard as concrete. "You will do what we say. This is not your decision. Family comes first." It wasn't a request. It was an order. Isabel felt the familiar sense of shrinking, like she was folding in on herself, suffocating in a life that never really fit. She looked at her mother, searching for a trace of softness, of understanding, but there was only cold expectation. "I'm not your scapegoat," Isabel whispered. "I'm not a bank." Luis laughed. "Then maybe you should try being a better daughter." The silence that followed was thick and cruel. Her mother broke it. "Your brother will always be your blood. You owe him." But in that moment, Isabel realized that blood was not thicker than freedom. Not tonight. She turned, walking to her bedroom. She stuffed her laptop, charger, the small tin of savings she'd scraped together, a change of clothes, and a few toiletries into her old-school backpack. She left the quinceañera jewelry on her pillow. With shaking hands, she scrawled a note. "I can't do this anymore. Don't call. Isabel." On her way out, she paused in the doorway, letting the flickering hallway light fall across her family. Her father and mother argued in low voices. Luis looked up, annoyance flashing in his eyes. "You running away?" he sneered. "Good luck out there, genius." Isabel's reply was steady, for the first time in her life. "I'd rather have nothing than keep paying for your mistakes." She shut the door behind her and stepped into the thick, southern darkness. Her heart hammered in her chest, equal parts terror and relief. With every step away from the tiny house, from the blame and manipulation, she felt the weight begin to shift. She didn't know where she was going, or what tomorrow would bring. All she knew was that, for once, she was leaving for herself. The night was still. She walked through quiet streets, past rows of battered trailers and peeling clapboard homes, the moon casting silver on her path. She had no plan, just the vague knowledge of a 24-hour gas station 2 miles out by the interstate. Somewhere to sit and think. Maybe find work. Maybe just hide. Isabel passed the old church, its doors locked tight. She wondered if her mother would pray for her return, or just curse her name for defiance. She wondered if her father would finally see her as a person, not just a tool for sacrifice. She doubted it, and she mourned the loss of something that had never really been hers. Unconditional love. By the time she reached the gas station, her feet ached, and her throat was raw from holding back tears. The bright fluorescent lights felt harsh after the darkness, but she welcomed the anonymity. The cashier, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, nodded to her as Isabel slumped into a booth by the window. She counted her money, just enough for a cheap sandwich and a bottle of water. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed with a string of missed calls and angry texts. "Come home now. You're being dramatic, Isabel. How could you do this to your own family?" She put the phone on silent, hands trembling. For the first time, she allowed herself to cry. Not just from sadness, but from exhaustion. From the years of being invisible, of giving up every dream, every dollar, every piece of herself, for the sake of others. She watched dawn break through the windows, the first pale pink light slipping over the horizon. With it came something unexpected. A tiny stubborn spark of hope. Maybe she really could start over. Maybe sacrifice didn't have to mean surrender. Maybe this was not the end, but the very beginning. As the world woke up, Isabel wiped her tears, sat up straighter, and watched the highway traffic pick up. Somewhere out there, she decided, was a life that belonged to her alone. She just had to find it. By the time the sun had fully risen, Isabel had already counted her money twice. 13 crumpled dollars, some loose change, and a heavy emptiness in her chest. She hunched over her booth at the gas station, arms wrapped tight around her backpack, watching as truckers filed in for coffee and breakfast sandwiches. She hadn't slept a wink, but adrenaline and the cold sting of reality kept her wide awake. The woman at the counter, who wore a faded name tag that read Marta, took pity on her. She brought over a cup of weak coffee and set it down without a word. Isabel managed a shaky, "Thank you." For a moment, Marta only looked at her, taking in the swollen eyes, the rumpled backpack, the lost girl aura that even Isabel could feel radiating off herself. "Tough night?" Marta asked, her voice gentle, but not pitying. Isabel nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She sipped the coffee, letting the bitterness ground her. Marta didn't press. She just walked away, letting the girl have her silence. After an hour, Isabel's phone buzzed again. She checked it with a dull dread. More missed calls, more angry texts. No apology, no, "Are you safe?" Just relentless guilt and accusation. She turned the phone off, feeling the loneliness settle deeper in her bones. Eventually, she forced herself to get up and move. The gas station bathroom was small and harshly lit, but she washed her face, changed into a clean t-shirt, and tried to make herself presentable. She looked at her reflection, a tired girl with determined brown eyes, hair pulled into a messy ponytail, stubbornness in every line of her jaw. "You did the right thing," she told herself. "You had to leave." The hours crawled by. Isabel applied for jobs on her laptop, using the free Wi-Fi, grocery stores, diners, anywhere that didn't require a degree. She tried not to think about what would happen when her money ran out. When hunger gnawed at her, she rationed a cheap sandwich, eating half now and saving the rest for later. As evening crept in, Marta approached her again. "You looking for work, mija?" she asked quietly. Isabel blinked. "Yes, anything. I'll clean, stock shelves, whatever." Marta hesitated, then nodded. "We got a night shift opening. Not much, but it's something. The owner's daughter just had a baby, so she's out for a while. You start tonight if you want." Relief crashed over Isabel in a wave so powerful she nearly cried. Thank you, she managed, her voice barely more than a whisper. Her first shift was grueling, but grounding. Marta showed her how to mop the floors, restock shelves, run the register. The hours were long and lonely, but Isabel found a strange comfort in the routine. For the first time in ages, she wasn't being screamed at, blamed, or made to feel like she owed someone for every breath she took. Here, she was just a girl trying to survive. Each night after work, she curled up in the break room, using her backpack as a pillow. Marta never commented, but Isabel sometimes caught her leaving an extra sandwich or bottle of water on the counter. Days passed in a strange liminal blur. Isabel watched customers come and go. Tired workers, lonely drunks, families passing through on their way to somewhere better. She started to memorize the regulars, picking up pieces of their stories from snippets of overheard conversation. But her family never stopped calling. On the fifth night, desperate and raw, Isabel finally turned her phone on, scrolling through dozens of messages. How could you abandon us? Luis's debts are your responsibility too. If you cared about your family, you'd come back and help. There were no messages asking if she was hungry. No one asked if she was safe. Only blame. Only demand. Isabel stared at the screen until her eyes burned. Then, with trembling hands, she blocked their numbers. The finality of it hurt, but in the space left behind, something else took root. Quiet. Uncertain. But real. Freedom. One afternoon, after a long shift, Isabel stepped outside for air. The sun was hot, the gas fumes sharp in her nose. She leaned against the ice machine and let herself cry. Not out of fear, not even out of sorrow, but for all the time she'd wasted believing her worth was measured by what she could give to others. A car pulled up, a beat-up sedan, engine sputtering. Inside was a woman in her 60s, with streaks of gray in her thick black hair, her face tired but kind. She stepped out and smiled at Isabel. You the new girl? I am Rosa. I run the diner across the highway. Marta says you work hard. Isabel nodded shyly. Rosa handed her a flyer. I need help with early mornings. Tips are good. Work's honest. If you want to try, come by tomorrow at 5. We take care of our own. Isabel felt her heart stutter. After weeks of being invisible, the smallest act of kindness glowed like a beacon. That night, as she lay awake on the break room couch, Isabel realized she had a choice. She could keep running, always afraid her family would find her, or she could root herself, build something new and see what grew. Before dawn, she made her decision. She would go to the diner. She would work. She would learn. She would fight for her own place in the world, even if no one else believed she deserved it. As the sky turned lavender with the coming sunrise, Isabel allowed herself a small, trembling smile. She was alone, yes, but for the first time in her life, her future belonged only to her. The diner was a squat brick building just off the highway, tucked between a shuttered laundromat and a tire shop, its neon open sign flickering in the pre-dawn gloom. Isabel arrived at 4:55 a.m., as instructed, clutching her backpack to her chest. She paused for a moment on the stoop, nerves jangling, then pushed open the glass door. Inside, the air was thick with the aroma of coffee and bacon grease. A few truckers hunched over mugs at the counter, the hiss of eggs on the griddle filling the silence. Rosa stood at the cash register, sleeves rolled, already barking out orders to a sleepy-looking cook. She spotted Isabel and grinned. Right on time, mija. I like that. Rosa handed her an apron, crisp and clean, and pointed to the back. Leave your things in the office, then we get to work. The next few hours passed in a blur. Rosa moved fast, showing Isabel how to refill coffee, wipe down tables, memorize orders, and keep a friendly face no matter what. At first, Isabel's hands shook. She spilled a cup of coffee, forgot to bring extra ketchup, mixed up 2 omelets. Rosa corrected her, but never with anger. Only a quick word, a gentle hand on her shoulder, a reminder. You'll get it. Everyone does. By 7, the place was packed. Farmers in dusty jeans, tired mothers with toddlers, old men in trucker hats. Isabel hustled between tables, her feet aching, but with every smile she received, a little piece of her fear melted away. During a brief lull, Rosa pressed a plate of scrambled eggs into her hands. Eat. Can't work on an empty stomach. Isabel ate gratefully, savoring every bite. Rosa slid into the booth across from her, lowering her voice. You got people looking for you, Isabel? Isabel hesitated, then nodded. My family. They think I owe them. They don't care how I'm doing, just what I can give. Rosa's eyes softened. Let me guess. Oldest daughter? Isabel nodded again. Happens a lot, Rosa said, matter of fact. We're raised to think our worth is what we give away. But you're not here to be used, mija. You're here to learn, to grow. That's what I see in you. Isabel blinked back tears. It had been so long since anyone looked at her as more than a resource. I won't let you down, Isabel whispered. Rosa smiled. You already haven't. Days slipped into weeks. Isabel worked mornings at the diner and nights at the gas station, saving every tip and paycheck. She learned fast how to handle difficult customers, how to make the perfect stack of pancakes, how to smile even when exhaustion threatened to pull her under. Rosa became a mentor, teaching Isabel not just about work, but about boundaries. You can care about people without letting them take everything, Isabel. There's a difference. Isabel listened, slowly internalizing the lesson. But the old fears were hard to shake. Her family's silence after she blocked their numbers was a constant ache. She sometimes wondered if she'd done the right thing, if she was being selfish, or if she was finally learning how to survive. One Thursday afternoon, a retired teacher named Mrs. Grady, slipped Isabel an extra tip with her check. You remind me of myself, honey. Don't let anyone tell you what you're worth. Isabel pocketed the money, holding the words close. Each small kindness was like water to a plant starved of sun. On her few days off, Isabel explored the town. She visited the library, read about starting small businesses, and watched YouTube videos on marketing. She dreamed, cautiously, of more than just survival. Maybe, just maybe, she could do something on her own. The first big test came one Sunday morning, when the diner was short-staffed and slammed with customers. Orders stacked up, tempers flared, and Rosa was pulled into the kitchen to cover for the sick cook. For the first time, Isabel was alone on the floor, responsible for everything. Panic threatened to overtake her, but she took a breath, remembering Rosa's advice. Be present. Take it one order at a time. She moved with newfound confidence, taking orders, pouring coffee, laughing with the kids, apologizing for delays, but always with warmth. At the end of the rush, the customers applauded her efforts, and Rosa, coming out of the kitchen, gave her a proud hug. You held it down, Isabel. I knew you could. That night, Isabel counted her tips, more than she'd ever made in a single day. But what mattered more was the feeling in her chest, pride, and the faintest glimmer of self-belief. She was breaking the cycle. She was not her family's sacrifice anymore. She was a young woman building her own story, one plate at a time. As she walked home beneath the wide Alabama sky, Isabel whispered a promise to herself. I will never go back to being less than I am. I will build something of my own. I will be free, It was a humid Saturday night when Isabel's past came knocking. Literally. She was finishing her shift at the gas station. Hands sticky with orange soda from mopping up a spill, when she heard the familiar purr of an engine outside. For a moment, she dismissed it as just another customer. But when the bell over the door jingled, and Luis strolled in, her heart plummeted. He looked much the same, lean, unshaven, wearing the same sly smile that always made her feel 2 inches tall. "Hey, Isa," he greeted as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't driven her out of the house with his selfishness. "Been looking all over for you." She bristled, clutching her rag like a shield. "How'd you find me?" Luis shrugged, glancing around. "Mom asked Marta at church. Small town, you know." He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Let's get coffee. We need to talk." Against her better judgment, Isabel led him to a booth. Nerves thrumming. Luis spun stories about how hard things were at home, how much the family missed her, how he wanted to patch things up. "Come on, Isa. You know I'm no good at talking feelings. But I'm trying. I messed up. I get it." Something in his tone, a softness she rarely heard, cracked open a door Isabel had tried to bolt shut. She let herself believe for a moment that he might have changed. She even reached for her wallet to buy his coffee, as if a $5 gesture could erase years of debt. Luis leaned in. "Things got worse after you left. Dad lost more shifts. Mom's sick with worry, and He stopped, voice faltering. "I'm in trouble, Isa. I owe money. And they said if I don't pay by next week." Isabel's stomach dropped. The familiar script. The guilt. The plea. She hardened. "I don't have anything, Luis. I'm barely making rent at the back of the diner, working 2 jobs. I'm not your lifeline anymore." Luis put on his wounded puppy face, the one that used to melt their mother. "But you're my sister. We're all each other's got. I'll pay you back, I swear. Hey." Before she knew it, he was weaving tales of loan sharks and threats, flashing her photos of bruises. Real or staged, she couldn't tell. Against all logic, Isabel felt herself weakening. Was she really going to let her brother get hurt? "Just a loan, Isa. $200, please." She didn't have $200 to spare, but she handed him everything she'd saved that week. $68 in tip money, wrapped in a rubber band. The beginnings of her future. "This is all I have," she whispered, shame burning in her cheeks. Luis took it quickly, barely looking at her. "You're a lifesaver. I'll pay you back next week. Promise." He hugged her awkwardly, then hurried out into the night, engine roaring. Isabel sat in the booth, numb and nauseous. She told herself she'd done the right thing. But the next morning, as she checked her bank app, she saw that while she was working, Luis had borrowed her phone to make a call, and in the process, transferred the last of her tiny checking account to his own via Quick Pay app. He was gone. Her money was gone. She had 60 cents left to her name. That day at the diner, Isabel worked with a cold ache in her chest, going through the motions, barely able to meet Rosa's eyes. She was angry at herself for believing, for letting old wounds be reopened. Rosa noticed. After the rush, she cornered Isabel in the kitchen. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Isabel tried to shrug it off, but tears slipped down her face. "I'm so stupid," she choked out. "I let him do it again. I keep hoping they'll love me if I just help one more time." Rosa put an arm around her. "Querida, love isn't measured in what you give away. That's not family. That's chains." For the first time, Isabel didn't defend her brother. Didn't make excuses. She just nodded, letting the shame and pain wash over her. That night, she made 2 decisions. First, she blocked Luis on every device and deleted his number. Second, she made a vow. No more letting her family define her worth. No more sacrificing her future for people who only saw her as a means to an end. The betrayal hurt, but it burned away the last of her illusions. In the coming weeks, Isabel threw herself into work. She doubled her shifts, learned more about managing money, and started watching small business videos at the library. She opened a new bank account under a different name. Rosa noticed her determination and promoted her to weekend shift lead. For the first time, Isabel felt in control. Not of her family, not of their approval, but of her own choices. She started to dream again, this time without apology. Maybe she could save enough to start a little food cart. Something of her own, a life that no one could take. Luis's betrayal was the end of one cycle, but the beginning of something much greater. Isabel's first steps toward freedom, pride, and a sweet, slow-burning revenge built on growth, not hate. It was a Tuesday evening, and Isabel sat in the empty diner after her shift, elbows propped on a sticky formica table, a notebook open before her. On one side, a column of numbers, her earnings, rent, what she still owed Rosa for letting her crash in the stockroom. On the other side, a list of dreams so small they felt almost embarrassing. Buy my own phone. Have 3 months' rent in savings. Try selling my own food one day. But something had changed since Luis's betrayal. The ache in Isabel's chest had sharpened into resolve. No more making herself small for people who didn't care if she disappeared. No more being the good daughter if it meant losing herself. She spent every spare minute at the public library, devouring articles and videos about small businesses. The idea came slowly at first, like a seed. Her favorite snack from childhood, churros rellenos, crispy cinnamon sticks filled with sweet cream or chocolate. She'd seen families in Mexico sell them from battered carts, kids running to buy them after school. No one in this sleepy Alabama town sold anything like it. That weekend, Rosa found Isabel tinkering in the diner kitchen after closing. Flour dusted her hair, and the air was sweet with cinnamon and sugar. "You starting a side hustle?" Rosa teased, peering over her shoulder. Isabel blushed. "Just experimenting. It reminds me of home." Rosa sampled one, then closed her eyes in bliss. "Mija, these are magic. Why not sell them at the Saturday market? I'll help you." The market was held in a weedy lot behind the town hall, a collection of farmers, crafters, and food stalls. Isabel was terrified. She borrowed a folding table from Rosa, printed a sign on the library computer, and made 100 churros by hand in the diner's kitchen. Her first customer was a little girl clutching a $1 bill. "Can I have one with chocolate?" she whispered. Isabel handed her the treat with trembling hands. The girl's face lit up, and her mother smiled. "These are amazing. Did you make them?" Soon, word spread. By noon, Isabel's tray was empty. She pocketed $65, nearly a full day's wage at the diner, and more importantly, a flood of compliments and encouragement. She biked home that afternoon, sunburned and exhausted, but something inside her sparkled for the first time in years. Maybe she really could do this. Maybe she was more than just a sacrifice. That week, she set up an Instagram account. @churrosbiaixa. She snapped pictures of her sweets, wrote simple captions in English and Spanish, and watched as her following grew. First a trickle, then dozens, then more. On market day, a local food blogger stopped by. "These are the best churros I've ever had," she gushed, snapping photos for her page. 2 days later, Isabel's inbox was flooded with messages, orders for birthday parties, requests to deliver at local offices, even a teacher asking her to cater a school fundraiser. Isabel reinvested every dollar she made. She bought a second-hand fryer, new pans, and a pop-up tent for the market. Each night she practiced new fillings: dulce de leche, guava cream, spicy Mexican chocolate. Rosa watched with a mixture of pride and motherly worry. "You work too hard, Isa. Don't forget to rest." Isabel grinned, flour streaking her face. "For the first time, I don't want to rest. I want to build." With every small win, her confidence grew. She started a spreadsheet to track her earnings. She learned about food permits, applied for a vendor's license, and began handing out business cards wherever she went. The diner customers cheered her on. Mrs. Grady, the retired teacher, bought churros for her book club. Truckers stopped by on their way out of town, taking extra for the road. Isabel was no longer just the quiet girl at the register. She was the churro girl, the young woman with the bright smile and magic hands. Of course, the whispers reached her family. A cousin messaged her on Facebook. "Your mom says you're selling food now. They want to know if you'll send money back." Isabel didn't reply. She blocked the number, deleting the message. This time, her ambition was hers alone. She owed nothing to anyone who only remembered her when they needed something. That Saturday, as Isabel packed up after another sold-out market, Rosa hugged her. "You see, mija? You broke the cycle. You built something for yourself." Isabel let the words settle into her bones. She looked at her stained hands, her tired arms, her stack of bills. For the first time, her sacrifices had bought her freedom, not for her family, but for herself. And somewhere deep inside, a new vow took shape. "If they ever come for what I've built, I'll fight. Not with hate, but with pride, with law, with everything I've learned. My future belongs to me now." For a few blissful weeks, Isabel's world felt brand new. She split her time between early diner shifts and late nights prepping dough, building a business that was finally, unmistakably her own. Every time she packed up her little cart, every order and smiling customer felt like a declaration. "I am not your sacrifice. I am not your shame." But family history is a current that runs deep, and the undertow was never far behind. It started innocently enough. A message request on Instagram from a distant cousin. "Abuela says she misses you. Your mama talks about you every day. You should call." Isabel ignored it. But then, as word of her churros spread around town, the messages turned. "Are you really too good for your family now? How can you make money while we suffer? Luis says you owe him. He made you who you are." The anger was a familiar ache, but Isabel didn't respond. She blocked numbers, deleted messages. Still, the pressure mounted. One sweltering Saturday morning at the market, Isabel saw her mother standing at the end of the vendor row, arms folded, lips pinched, eyes hard. Her cousin trailed behind, phone out, filming. Mama didn't come to buy. She came to perform. She marched up to Isabel's stall, voice sharp enough to cut through the crowd. "So this is what you do? You sell food on the street? Where is your dignity?" Heads turned. Isabel froze, heat flooding her cheeks. "I'm working, Mama. I pay my own bills now." Her mother's eyes narrowed. "And you forget your family? Luis has nothing, your father's health is failing, and you won't even send money home? Everything you have is because of us." The accusation burned. Isabel's hands shook, but she stood her ground. "Everything I have is because I worked for it. You made it clear what I was worth to you. Mama's bad. You shame us. People ask why you left, Why you never visit? What am I supposed to say? Isabel stared her down. Say the truth, that I was never good enough, unless I was giving something away. The exchange drew a small, uncomfortable crowd. Rosa, having watched from a few stalls down, swept in and put a gentle hand on Isabel's shoulder. Is everything all right here? She asked, voice deceptively calm. Mama glared at Rosa, then turned away. You should be ashamed of yourself, Isabel. You are dead to this family. She left, cousin still filming, words trailing in the heavy air. Isabel barely made it through the rest of the market. Her hands shook so badly she nearly burned herself on the fryer. When the crowd thinned, she ducked behind the tent, breath coming in shallow bursts. Rosa found her there, crouched on the curb, fighting tears. You did the right thing, Isa. Families like that. They'll take everything until you have nothing left but the crumbs. Isabel's phone buzzed again. This time, a barrage of new voicemails. Threats, guilt, even an anonymous tip to the health department, reporting her stall for unsafe food practices. She knew it was her family. No one else had motive. That afternoon, a local gossip site posted a video. Immigrant girl sells food at farmer's market, but her family says she's a fraud. The comments poured in. Some cruel, some supportive. The shame she'd carried her whole life tried to settle back in. But Isabel gritted her teeth. She made a choice. She wouldn't run. Not this time. With Rosa's help, Isabel responded publicly. She posted a video from her stall, introducing herself and her business, sharing her permit, and thanking the community for their support. I built this with my own hands. My door is open to all, except those who want to tear me down. Her courage struck a nerve. Loyal customers flocked to her defense. Neighbors left positive reviews. The market director even featured her on their official page. But the pushback continued. Her mother and Luis showed up at her work, loudly demanding what was owed. One night, someone threw a brick through the diner's back window, scrawling, "Traitor," on a napkin. The police came, but nothing could be proved. Rosa replaced the window, and Isabel worked every shift, head high, refusing to be bullied out of her own life. One morning, as she cleaned up after the breakfast rush, Rosa gave her a set of keys. The back office is yours if you need somewhere safe. I trust you. Isabel hugged her fiercely, words failing. She realized then that true family could be built, not just inherited. That dignity came from choosing herself, even when it hurt. Later at the library, Isabel researched how to protect her small brand. She read about legal rights, business registrations, and how to guard against defamation. She emailed a local law clinic for advice. She would not be powerless again. Not to her family, not to anyone. That night, Isabel posted one last message online. My family taught me the price of loyalty. Now, I'm learning the value of self-worth. I will not be shamed into silence. As she drifted off to sleep in Rosa's back office, Isabel felt battered, but unbroken. Her family's attacks were fierce, but they were a sign of her independence, and a warning that she had something worth protecting. In the darkness, Isabel whispered a new vow. My story will not end as their scapegoat. I will defend what I build. My revenge is not destruction, it's survival, and it's living well. The legal notice came on a Monday, tucked among the bills and food supplier flyers in Isabel's mailbox behind the diner. She almost tossed it, assuming it was another piece of junk, but the return address made her pause. Anderson and Ruiz, attorneys at law. Isabel opened it with trembling fingers. Her stomach lurched as she read. A cease and desist letter. Luis and her mother had retained a lawyer, accusing Isabel of illegally using family recipes and defaming the family name for profit. They demanded she stop selling churros, take down her business page, and pay $2,000 in damages for emotional distress. She dropped into a chair, hands shaking. She wanted to laugh at the absurdity. They were the ones who'd tried to break her, yet here they were, using the law as a weapon. Still, fear crept in. What if they could actually destroy everything she'd built? That afternoon, Isabel's usual spark was missing. She worked her diner shift in silence, distracted and distant. Even Rosa couldn't coax a smile out of her. After closing, Isabel sat in the empty booth, staring at the letter. She remembered something she'd read at the library about free legal aid for small business owners and low-income residents. Gathering her courage, she called the number from the pamphlet she'd kept. The voice on the other end was warm, professional. "My name is Daniela Cruz. I'm an attorney with the local legal clinic. Tell me what's going on." For the first time, Isabel told her whole story. From working 2 jobs, to Luis stealing her money, to her family's public shaming, to the fake health department tip, and now the lawsuit. Daniela listened without judgment. "You're not alone, Isabel," she finally said. "We see this all the time. Families using shame and intimidation to keep people in line. But you have rights. You've done nothing illegal. Your churros recipe is your own, and no one can copyright family tradition. I'll help you respond to this letter, file your business registration properly, and get a trademark started on your brand. No one, not even family, can take what you've earned." Isabel felt tears sting her eyes, not from sadness, but from pure relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "I thought I'd have to give up." Daniela replied, "That's exactly what they want. But you've come this far. Don't let them scare you now." Within a week, the legal response went out. Daniela sent a crisp letter back to the family's lawyer, refuting every claim and warning against further harassment. She walked Isabel through trademark paperwork, showed her how to apply for a formal LLC, and even helped her set up a simple contract for catering orders. Rosa, ever supportive, connected Isabel with other women in town who had weathered similar storms. Immigrants, single moms, entrepreneurs. A quiet sisterhood formed, offering stories, tips, and most important, solidarity. As her business protection solidified, Isabel found a new kind of strength. For the first time, she wasn't just surviving, she was defending her future. When her family's lawyer sent one last threatening email, Daniela handled it swiftly. The legal threat stopped. The community rallied too. A local newspaper ran a story. Young entrepreneur fights family backlash to build sweet success. Customers flocked to Isabel's market stall, some sharing their own tales of breaking free from toxic family expectations. A sense of belonging bloomed where shame used to live. But not all attacks came with signatures. Someone slashed Isabel's market tent one night and left threatening graffiti on the side of the diner. "Family first, traitor." Rosa and the other vendors helped repair the damage, refusing to let fear take root. Daniela contacted the police and insisted on extra patrols near Isabel's stand. "The louder they get, the more threatened they are by your success," she told Isabel. "But remember, fear is what kept you chained. Courage is what sets you free." Little by little, Isabel's fear faded, replaced by a fierce pride. She worked even harder, refining her recipes, expanding her menu, and taking business classes online at night. She taught herself how to read contracts and spot a scam. She learned to recognize the difference between genuine family and those who only saw her as a resource. One day, as she packed up after a busy market, a young girl lingered by her table, clutching a dollar bill and glancing nervously at her parents arguing nearby. "Is it okay if I buy one for myself?" the girl whispered. Isabel knelt beside her, smiling gently. "Of course, mija. And you know what? It's okay to take care of yourself too. That's what I'm learning." The girl beamed and hurried away, churro in hand. As Isabel watched her disappear into the crowd, she realized her journey was bigger than just revenge or escape. She was building a life where kindness, pride, and self-respect mattered more than blood. Her family's pushback had taught her how to stand tall. With the law on her side and a new family of choice, Isabel was unstoppable. Her business, her life, was hers. No one would ever take that from her again. Summer arrived with a wall of heat, thick and relentless. Isabel was used to sweating over a fryer, but now she felt the pressure in every part of her life, not just at work, but in her sleep, in her inbox, in the wary glances she caught around town. Success had made her visible. It had also made her a target. After the failed legal scare and vandalism, her family's campaign escalated. Luis created fake social media accounts to leave nasty reviews. Old family friends called the market, accusing Isabel of stealing from her mother. Rumors swirled in church and grocery stores. She's selling without a license. She cheated her own blood. She's only out for herself. One Tuesday morning, the market manager called Isabel into his office. She sat in the small stuffy room as he cleared his throat, looking apologetic. "We've had several complaints, Isabel. Health department, licensing, even personal safety threats. I have to investigate. You can't set up until this is resolved." For a second, Isabel's world spun. The market was her lifeline, the place her business had grown, where people knew her. To lose it, even temporarily, was to lose everything she'd built. She left the office with her supplies still in the trunk of Rosa's car, hands numb. For the first time in months, she didn't have work to anchor her, and the absence felt like a hole opening beneath her feet. Rosa drove her home, silent until they pulled up behind the diner. "You want to give up? I understand, mija," she said gently. "But you've survived worse than this. Sometimes the world is cruel to girls who say no. But if you need to fall apart, I'll be right here." Isabel nodded, tears burning her eyes. She spent the afternoon curled in the back office, fighting despair and shame. Was this it? Had her family finally won? That evening, she received a message from Daniela, the lawyer. "Don't panic. Send me every complaint and message. I'll talk to the market and the health department. They have to follow the law, not gossip." But the real turning point came from the community. When news spread that Isabel's stall was closed, her customers began asking questions. The diner regulars, seeing her absence, asked after her. Mrs. Grady, the retired teacher, organized a churros Saturday at the local library, inviting neighbors to support Isabel directly. Rosa set up a pop-up stand outside the diner, and by noon, a line stretched down the block. People posted photos online, tagging Nashak's Churros Bisa and sharing stories of kindness. "She made my daughter's birthday special. She always smiles, even on her worst days. She's not a traitor. She's hope for our town." By the end of the weekend, Daniela had resolved the complaints. None were valid. All traced back to a few fake accounts, and one anonymous caller, Luis. The health inspector arrived, sampled a churro, and told Isabel with a wink, "Best food I've had all month. You're clear to sell. Just keep up your paperwork." The market director, seeing the groundswell of public support, invited Isabel back with an apology. "Seems you've got more friends than enemies, Isabel. Welcome home. But not everyone was pleased. When her family saw the community rally around Isabel, the messages grew nastier. Her mother called her at the diner, voice full of venom. "You think you've won? You think strangers are your family? They'll turn on you too, just wait." Isabel listened to the threats, then calmly hung up. She felt the hurt, yes, but also the boundaries she'd built. Rosa found her afterward and pressed a cool glass of water into her hands. "Mija, it takes real courage to keep going when your own blood tries to poison your dreams." That night, Isabel wrote a post for her business page. She didn't mention her family by name, but the message was clear. When you're trying to change your story, some people will try to write you out. But your worth is not defined by what others say, or even by the family you were born into. Thank you to everyone who stood by me. My business isn't just about churros. It's about second chances and community. I see you. I thank you. I'm not giving up." The response was overwhelming. Dozens of messages of encouragement, offers to help, invitations to new markets and events. Isabel realized something vital. She was not as alone as she'd once feared. For every brick thrown by her family, 100 hands reached out to lift her up. She returned to the market the following week, nerves buzzing. Her first customer was the same little girl who'd bought a churro at her very first stall, now wearing a homemade Team Isa t-shirt. The girl grinned shyly as Isabel handed her a treat. "My mama says you're a hero." Isabel smiled, gratitude flooding her chest. She wasn't a hero. She was a survivor, a fighter. As the sun set over the market, Rosa pulled her into a side hug. "They tried to take everything, but you have more now than you ever did. You belong to yourself and to the people who choose you." That night, Isabel stood in front of her reflection, shoulders square, eyes bright. Her family's power was fading, replaced by a new legacy, a story she was writing for herself. And no one, no matter how loud, would ever silence her again. Autumn arrived like a promise. Cool air, golden leaves spinning down Main Street, and the kind of hope that Isabel hadn't felt in years. It had been 6 months since she walked away from her family, and every week since, she'd fought for every inch of freedom, every smile, every sweet taste of success. But after surviving the storm of her family's attacks, Isabel realized she wanted more than just survival. She wanted to thrive. She wanted to turn every scar into something beautiful. One Wednesday afternoon, she sat in Rosa's kitchen after work, sifting through stacks of business cards and scribbled ideas. Rosa was chopping peppers for dinner, humming a corrido, but kept glancing at Isabel's notepad. "You got a plan, Isa?" Rosa finally asked, arching an eyebrow. Isabel grinned shyly. "I want to try something new for the market. Not just churros. Something that's never been done here. Something that makes people feel like they're tasting a memory or a dream." Rosa set down her knife. "Mija, you have magic in your hands. Show them who you are." That night, Isabel couldn't sleep. She flipped through childhood recipes, remembering late nights with her abuela, feeling sweet empanadas with guava and cheese, laughing over burnt edges. An idea took root. What if I made a churro that told a story? She stayed up late, mixing guava paste, homemade cajeta caramel, and cinnamon dough. Her first attempt was a disaster. The filling oozed out. The dough was too dense. But Isabel was relentless. Every mistake was a lesson. Every burned batch a step closer to something new. By Saturday morning, she had it. A spiral-shaped churro filled with guava and queso fresco, dusted with spiced sugar and drizzled with caramel. She called it churro de mi abuela. She made a sign. "Try the new churro de mi abuela." inspired by my grandmother's kitchen and my second chance at life. The market was packed, whispers of curiosity swirling around her stall. Isabel offered samples to anyone willing. A local food vlogger stopped by, tasted the churro, and her eyes went wide. This is incredible, like dessert and nostalgia at the same time. I have to post about this. Within a day, Isabel's Instagram was flooded with tags and new followers. By Monday, she had 3 requests for catering events, and the town's monthly Taste of Main Street festival invited her to be the headline dessert. With each event, Isabel's story spread. Not just the treats, but the journey. A young woman who had lost everything, then rebuilt herself, one recipe at a time. The local paper ran a feature. From family outcast to local star, Isabel's churros ignite Main Street. Orders poured in. The little pop-up in Rosa's backyard turned into a whirlwind of activity. Neighbors volunteering to help, teenagers wanting part-time work, other local business owners reaching out to collaborate. One day, Mrs. Grady, the retired teacher, brought Isabel a stack of old cookbooks. For inspiration, honey. And so you'll always know where you came from, even if your family forgets. Isabel hugged her, realizing how far she'd come. She no longer craved validation from those who'd hurt her. She belonged here, in the heart of her own story. But not everything was easy. Her mother called again, voice bitter. So now you're famous? Are you too important for your own blood? Isabel answered calmly. I'm not too important for anyone, but I won't let anyone take what I built, Mama. Not you, not Louise, not anybody. There was a long silence. Then her mother hung up. Isabel felt only a small pang of sadness, but mostly relief. As the holidays approached, the churro de mi abuela became a must-have at every party and festival. Isabel used her extra earnings to pay Rosa back in full, and then some, insisting on new cookware and a mural for the diner's wall, painted by a local artist and featuring a rainbow of churros winding through scenes of the town. On Christmas Eve, as Isabel finished packing a massive catering order for a church, she stopped to look around. Rosa laughing in the kitchen, kids filling boxes with treats, neighbors singing in Spanish and English. She realized for the first time that her revenge was never about tearing anyone down. It was about rising, higher and brighter than anyone expected, especially herself. As midnight neared, Rosa raised a glass of sparkling cider. To Isabel, the girl who turned ashes into sweetness. To new beginnings, and to family that chooses you. Everyone toasted, laughter echoing through the night. Standing by the window, watching lights twinkle down Main Street, Isabel knew she had lost everything to gain herself, and she would never be alone again. By the start of the new year, Isabel's world looked nothing like the lonely, frightened nights she'd spent curled up on the diner's storeroom floor. Her churros were the talk of Main Street. Her churro de mi abuela was now being shipped all over the county. And Isabel herself had been featured on local radio and food blogs. She'd hired 2 part-time helpers and started saving for a food truck, her biggest dream yet. But as her star rose, her family's fortunes plummeted. Word spread that Luis had been fired from his warehouse job after being caught stealing equipment. Her father, suffering from chronic back pain, lost his last steady gig at the car wash. And her mother, who'd spent months telling anyone who would listen that Isabel was a traitor, found the doors of her old church friends beginning to close. Even so, they didn't reach out for reconciliation. Instead, the phone calls returned, now laced with desperation, not just rage. Luis left a voicemail, voice slurred and bitter. You have money now, Isabel. Don't pretend you forgot where you came from. If you have any heart, you'll help your real family." Her mother's texts followed. "We're your blood. This is the time you're supposed to prove you love us. You have more than you need. Don't be selfish. We're suffering." Isabel read the messages, feeling the old ache. But something inside her had changed. She remembered every sacrifice she'd made, every humiliation, every time she'd been told she was only valuable when she was giving something away. Now, the tables had turned. They were asking for her help. Not out of love, but out of expectation. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she talked with Rosa, whose kitchen had become her second home. "You could help them," Rosa said quietly. "But you don't have to. You owe them nothing. The world will always try to make you feel small again when you finally stand tall." Isabel nodded, chewing her lip. "I don't want to become like them. I don't want to hate." Rosa smiled. "You already aren't. Hate destroys you, mija. Dignity keeps you whole." Meanwhile, the community noticed the contrast between Isabel's hard-won joy and her family's growing hardship. People gossiped, of course, but most offered her only encouragement. "Don't let them drag you back," Mrs. Grady warned. "You built this yourself." Then one day, Luis showed up at the market. Thin and desperate, sunglasses hiding his eyes. He hovered near her stall until the crowd thinned, then stepped forward. "Isa, I need help. I'm sorry, okay? I know I messed up. I'm in trouble. I got people looking for me." He looked around as if expecting sympathy. "You have money now. Can you just help me out this once?" Isabel felt a familiar tug, the part of her that had always wanted to fix things, to make everything right. But this time, she saw it for what it was. Another attempt to use her, to take what she'd built. She shook her head. "I'm sorry, Luis. I hope you figure things out. But I can't be your way out. I already gave you everything I had, and you threw it away." He stared at her, rage and shame warring on his face. "You think you're better than us now, huh?" "No," Isabel replied, her voice steady. "But I'm not going to be your victim anymore. I hope you get the help you need. But it won't be from me." Luis left, cursing under his breath. Isabel watched him go, her heart heavy but resolute. The next week, her mother came to the diner, face drawn, pride in tatters. She begged for money for rent, for food, for a doctor's bill. Isabel listened, compassion flickering in her chest, but she kept her promise to herself. "Mama, I hope you find peace. But I can't fix this for you. You taught me that love is something you earn by how you treat people, not something you can demand. I wish you the best, but I'm building something different." Her mother wept, pleaded, then stormed out, muttering that Isabel was heartless. Rosa wrapped Isabel in a hug afterward. "It takes more strength to say no with love than to say yes out of fear." That night, Isabel sat in the sunroom, her own little studio, surrounded by the tools and ingredients of her business. She pulled out her old notebook and wrote, "I am not who I was. I am not my family's bank or scapegoat or shame. I am Isabel, and I choose dignity. My hands build, they don't just give. My heart can forgive, but I do not have to forget." As winter melted into spring, word spread of Isabel's story, not as the girl who abandoned her family, but as the woman who survived them. Parents sent daughters to learn from her. Young women messaged her for advice, and even local organizations began inviting her to speak. The tables had turned. Isabel's family was left to face the world on their own terms, and Isabel, no longer their sacrifice, stood at the center of her own life, proud, unbroken, and free. The days grew longer and lighter, as if the whole world was breathing easier. Isabel was busier than ever, her churro business flourishing beyond anything she'd dared to dream. She now had a regular spot at the market, a booming delivery schedule, and a growing group of loyal helpers. Some were high school girls seeking their first job. Others were women who had once felt as powerless as Isabel once did. But even as her life blossomed, the shadow of her family's pain lingered at the edge of her happiness. She heard whispers that Luis had taken a job out of state, that her father was living with a distant cousin, that her mother was picking up cleaning shifts in the next town. Sometimes, Isabel woke in the middle of the night, heart pounding, remembering the look on her mother's face as she walked away for the last time. The guilt was a stubborn ghost, but so was her newfound dignity. One crisp Sunday, Isabel was asked to speak at the town's women's shelter. The director, a soft-spoken woman named Judith, had watched Isabel's story unfold and wanted her to share her journey with others struggling to break free from family cycles. As Isabel stood before the small crowd, she felt her nerves give way to honesty. People will tell you family is everything, but family, real family, is who sees your light, not just your usefulness. I learned that love can be a chain or it can be a key. I had to leave the people I loved to save myself. That was the hardest and bravest thing I've ever done. But in choosing myself, I found a whole new world of people who chose me right back. She looked out at the women, at their children, some hugging stuffed animals, some sleeping on their mothers' laps. If I can do it, you can too. You don't owe anyone your suffering. You deserve joy. After her talk, a teenager with tear-streaked cheeks came up and hugged Isabel tight. Thank you. My mom says you're the reason she finally left. That night, Isabel lay awake, overwhelmed by the realization that her pain, and her refusal to let it define her, was becoming hope for others. But then came the final test. One morning, she received a letter in the mail. A bill for her mother's unpaid medical expenses. The envelope, sent by the hospital, came with a handwritten note. We know you're her daughter. She can't pay, and you're listed as her emergency contact. Isabel stared at the letter for a long time. She felt old patterns tugging at her heart, the urge to fix things, to erase her family's failures with her own effort. But then she remembered the promise she'd made to herself, that dignity was not about revenge, but about refusing to be used again. She called the hospital and calmly explained that she was estranged from her mother and would not be responsible for any bills. She asked to have her name removed as the emergency contact and confirmed it in writing. It was a simple, professional call, one that would have terrified her months ago. She hung up, feeling the last chain finally break. That evening at the diner, Rosa could tell something was different. You look lighter, Isa. What happened? Isabel smiled. I finally said no, not out of anger, just out of love for myself. Rosa nodded. That's real freedom, mija. With the past behind her, Isabel set out to create something that would outlast the pain. She started a scholarship fund, using a portion of her earnings to help other girls from struggling families go to college or start small businesses. She called it the Second Chance Sisterhood and made sure every application came with an invitation to her kitchen, where girls learned to bake, budget, and dream bigger. She invited Luis and her parents to apply, but not to take over or guilt her, only to find their own path, if they were willing to do the work. She was polite but firm. Her boundaries were not a wall. They were a gate that only kindness and growth could pass. The community rallied behind her. The mayor invited her to speak at the spring festival. Churches and schools asked her to share her story. Her DMs filled with thanks from strangers, and her kitchen became a sanctuary for anyone who needed a safe place. One evening, as Isabel sat on the diner steps watching the sunset, Rosa joined her, handing her a warm churro. "You ever regret not getting revenge?" she asked gently. Isabel shook her head, a peaceful smile on her lips. "No, revenge is giving them power over me. Dignity is living well, loving myself and helping others do the same." She looked out over the town, the place that had watched her stumble, fall, and rise again. "I don't want to be remembered for what I survived. I want to be remembered for what I built." As dusk settled, Isabel whispered a promise to the night. "This is my legacy. Not suffering, not hate, but hope, passed from hand to hand, plate to plate, until every girl knows she's worth saving." The last cold wind of spring carried a quiet promise. Everything would change. And this time, Isabel was ready. The sun warmed the front steps of the diner as she sipped coffee with Rosa, surveying the busy street. Neighbors waving, children running to school. The market vendors setting up for another bright Saturday. It had been almost a year since Isabel walked away from the old house and its ghosts. Now, as she unlocked the back door of her kitchen, the past felt small and distant, a shadow burned away by light. Inside, the air hummed with life. Isabel's team, 3 high school girls and 1 college freshman, all once invisible in their own ways, were rolling dough and laughing over spilled cinnamon. The Second Chance Sisterhood Scholarship had its first class of recipients. The kitchen was always full. Someone learning to budget, someone practicing English, someone shaping their very first churro. Isabel found herself pausing at the threshold, heart swelling with gratitude. Here, no one asked her to give everything for nothing. Here, every helping hand was returned, every small kindness multiplied. She had built the family she'd never had, one that chose each other, day after day. On the first anniversary of her escape, Isabel hosted a community celebration in the diner's parking lot. Long folding tables groaned under piles of homemade food, empanadas, tamales, churros, cakes. Old neighbors, who once looked through her, now lined up to shake her hand, share a story, offer an apology, or just say thank you. There were speeches, of course. The mayor called Isabel a local hero. Mrs. Grady cried through her toast. Even the pastor from Isabel's childhood church sent a letter of blessing. The girls Isabel mentored stood together, arms linked, each sharing a hope for the future. "I want to be a teacher," said one. "I want to open my own cafe," said another. "I want to help other girls like Isa helped me," whispered the youngest. Luis and Isabel's parents did not come. Isabel had invited them, but made clear her boundaries. Forgiveness could not erase the past, and family was now a matter of choice, not obligation. She'd offered to help them find work or support, on her terms, not theirs. But they declined. For the first time, Isabel felt peace instead of pain. She had done what she could. The rest was not hers to carry. Later, as dusk painted the sky in gold and indigo, Rosa found Isabel cleaning up, a tired but contented smile on her face. "You did it, mija," Rosa said, squeezing her shoulder. "You changed your story, and ours too." Isabel looked out at the fading crowd. Kids chasing each other with sticky fingers, mothers laughing, volunteers packing away chairs. "I thought revenge meant making them suffer." she admitted quietly. But the best revenge was choosing joy, building something good, and refusing to disappear. Rosa grinned. Legacy, not leftovers. Pride, not payback. As the last guests left, Isabel sat alone beneath the market lights, remembering the lonely girl who had walked away with only a backpack and her hope. She thought of every sleepless night, every betrayal, every moment she almost gave up. And then she thought of every kindness, every hand reached out, every new beginning she'd been brave enough to accept. Tomorrow, there would be more work, more dough to knead, more girls to mentor, more dreams to build. But for tonight, she allowed herself to rest, to breathe, to marvel at the miracle she had become. She was not a sacrifice, she was not an exile. She was Isabel, builder, mentor, friend, survivor. She was the founder of a family born not from blood, but from choice and hope. And her story was only just beginning.